Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for listening. Follow us on SoundCloud at The Real Pond, on Twitter at The Pond Pod, on Instagram at The Pond Podcast, and on YouTube at The Pond Podcast. I'm joined with Jay and Chloe. So the Avengers came out, and it was a culmination of almost 20 films, over $20 billion, over 10 years. What were your thoughts on Endgame?
Ooh. All right, so, man, it was just a real emotional experience. And if we're jumping into it, we're jumping into it. Well, first of all, before we get started, y'all, this is definitely a spoiler alert. If you have not seen Endgame, if you have not seen Game of Thrones, we're talking about both on this podcast today. So if you're not caught up like we are, please, go ahead and pause it. Go ahead and watch, take the 4 or 5 hours you need to watch it and process, and then come back to us and listen. All right, if y'all are still here, that means that you are about to listen to a whole bunch of spoilers. All right, so when I left the theater for Endgame, obviously it was just really emotional. I wasn't expecting to see what we saw on screen. I was thrilled because the theory that I had running last year from Infinity War, part of it actually did come true. I did predict that they would have to do some sort of time travel, a la Days of Future Past. And another big clue that gave it away for me was when Ant-Man and the Wasp came out, because it had to do with the quantum realm, and we get to see Janet Pym was stuck in the quantum realm for like 30 years and somehow survived. So I figured that there would be some sort of time travel element to go back and stop the war before it starts. I did not think they would go all the way back to like the first Avengers film and the first Guardians of the Galaxy film to do it. In addition, I didn't think they would go all the way back to 1970 to, get the Tesseract Stone and bring it back to 2023. But they did, and that was crazy. What's even crazier, and I don't know if you guys noticed this, but X-Men Days of Future Past, for those who don't know, let me just do like this quick backstory. Marvel went bankrupt by the year 2000. So they had to sell off a lot of their superheroes to a lot of different movie houses. Spider-Man was with Sony, like the Tobey Maguire trilogy. X-Men was under 20th Century Fox. And then the rest, Fantastic Four was sold off as well. And the rest eventually went to Disney to create Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios bought Spider-Man back, which is why we get to see Spider-Man now. But they hadn't bought X-Men yet. And in 2014, X-Men came out with Days of Future Past, where it's the year 2023, and Wolverine has to go back in time 50 years to stop an event so that way their villain, in that case the Sentinels, would not have taken over the world. So in Avengers Endgame, which is under Marvel Studios, not Marvel Entertainment, they too are in 2023, because that's 5 years after Infinity War, and there's a part in the movie that says 5 years later, they're in 2023 going back in time to stop the Infinity War before it starts. And you kind of see them do a couple salutes to Days of Future Past, like when the Ancient One is talking about how, changing the future could change your reality, but not other realities. And then when Thanos comes to 2023, Hawkeye is fighting off a miniature version of the Sentinels. So the subtleties, the detail, the fact that Stan Lee was able to connect Marvel Entertainment and Marvel Studios at a time where Disney just bought the rights to X-Men by buying 20th Century Fox. I was just thoroughly impressed with how they were trying to keep everything consistent across the Marvel universe and how this could set up future Marvel movies. But yeah, to me, that was just like the most amazing subtlety to me.
Yeah, I think for me, I shared this on social media after I seen the movie that, 2008, whatever I think it was, May 2nd, 2008, when Iron Man came out, I was working my job as an RA in college, and I was working the desk shift, and it was my birthday, and I literally left that shift and went and saw Iron Man, and 11 years later, seeing the end. It's a lot of investment of time, money, passion, energy, everything into it. And I think it was absolutely worth all of that. And I think even to Chloe's point, the piece about kind of just like the details and the nuance, it's just amazing because they even going back and all the things that they loop together and try to tie together and make consistent from a continuity standpoint to make sure that all the stuff at least tried to make sense, right? Because who knows if they really knew that this was going to be the end and how everything that they did up to this point was going to tie into all of that. But they definitely made you feel like it. They definitely made you feel like it. That was the case. Think like that's the case. Just the little details and the subtle things, like just lines. The fact that at the end where before Captain America goes back to take the gems back and he gives that line about don't do anything stupid while I'm gone, and Bucky's response is, "You're taking the stupid with you." That's just an inverse of the same line they gave in Captain America First Avenger, but in the roles reversed, with Bucky leaving and Captain telling the same that, saying "You're taking the stupid with you." Like just the nuance, the details, just those small little things. It's hard to they've made all these characters feel important in their own way. And that big fight scene, making them all trying to find a way to have them all have some semblance of importance in that scene too, that had to be a challenge because it's just a lot of characters, and everybody had a spotlight in one way, shape, or form. And but we also know that it's about this whole saga really was about the first people that they showcased in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, which was Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, right? This is why they had the spotlight showing them at the end too. Of course, of course. But I think just even like some of the biggest set pieces throughout the movie and in the end was focused around that core, right? Because that was the starting lineup going into everything, right? So Black Widow, Hawkeye being a part of that too, but them not having their own individual movies, and that's what I'm talking about in terms of the focal point being set on those individuals, because that was the face, right? And we also saw that for the most part they're all going their separate ways. We know what happened to Iron Man. That's it. It's over. We know Captain America. It's it. It's over. Right, Thor is going off on a different adventure with a new group, but now what does this look like going forward for everybody else? So because even though that Black Panther and Doctor Strange, and they're going to continue to have movies, so in that big set piece towards the end, they didn't have to be necessarily featured so greatly because we know what there's still a whole lot of time for them to have their shine and to be the focal points going forward, because there really ain't no choice. But I just think it's amazing the work that they did, putting all that together, 22 movies, 11 years, and it was absolutely worth all 3 hours and 2 minutes that I spent in that theater.
And then to feed off your point about the death aspect of Endgame, I want to say Infinity War so bad, but the death part of Endgame, because that's like the most poignant part of the film. And then that, in addition to like the problem with messing with time and seeing your loved ones that you haven't seen since their deaths, right? But going back to the death thing, for me, I thought it was fitting that the two assassins, like the two that didn't necessarily the two that didn't necessarily receive their superpowers on accident, the two that actually rely on weapons rather than robotics to fight, Hawkeye and Black Widow having to sacrifice themselves for the Soul Stone. I thought that was a very poignant scene. And, for me, I don't want to believe that Black Widow is dead. I want to believe that she and Gamora are stuck in the Soul Stone, and that, like, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we're going to see Quill and his friends and Thor go after Gamora, try to find her, and try to find Black Widow as well. But I thought that was just a really poignant scene, because it's like, you practically grow up with these characters. Like, they've been doing these films, to your point, for 10 years, and it's just like, that's a lot of time, that's a lot of filming, that's a lot of movies, and it's just, I think at least for me, when it comes to superheroes, they don't necessarily die. They just get a new actor. So it's a very rare event to actually see a superhero die in a film. And then with Iron Man, I didn't want to see Iron Man die, but he was the first Marvel blockbuster for Marvel Studios. Like, the first film was The Hulk, but it flopped like the one.
The Edward Norton one was so trash. It was trash that we don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah, it was trash. And then they got a whole new actor with Mark Ruffalo, and they never gave Hulk a standalone film again. But Iron Man was like the first blockbuster for Marvel Studios, and he was also probably the most selfish superhero of all the Avengers. Like, to his dad's point, Howard Stark. He did things for the greater good, but it was also for his own self-interest. And it's like here, he finally does the most selfless thing he can do. It's like he just wanted to see his family live on, and he also wanted to bring people back from the past. And he did the most selfless thing by taking the Infinity Stones himself and snapping his own fingers to end the war.
What?
I mean, I hadn't cried in a superhero film since Logan. But I was definitely shedding tears at that moment.
A thug tear here and there, boy.
I didn't share no thug tears. I boo-hoo cried in my car when I got in the car, and it didn't hit me till the next day.
I had a few thug tears on that because again, like that's one Iron Man, my favorite one, but also
Iron Man is my guy.
That being the first one, the first movie, the first real blockbuster movie. The what really set it off. They announced the Avengers Initiative at the end of the first Iron Man, like that being such a central focus, but also the fact that they foreshadowed a lot of this for over a series of a lot of movies, right? Like this has been foreshadowed for a long time. That and even Captain America telling him that what was it in Civil War that he won't be the one to sacrifice, he won't be the one to lay down his shield in front of everybody else, and then him being turned around and being the one to do that, like it's just so many layers to it. It also just produced a lot of other questions. But Rosanna, I want to hear from you. What was your statements first before I ask the questions that I now have after seeing Endgame?
First of all, if I was gonna rate Endgame, right, and I got 20 movies to pick from, it's gonna go in my top 3, and here's why. Oftentimes you don't get a movie put together in such a way that it gets to touch on every film that happened before it. It closes a lot of chapters, even though, like you said, Jay, a lot of stuff is still open. Implements a Marvel vs. Capcom fight scene that nobody in the history of movies has ever been able to create. Like, when I watched it, I was like, man, this is like on the scale of Return of the Kings, but it jumps over Return of the Kings because it's a new age movie, it's a new film, it's new technology. And when the final battle was so epic, and for me, Iron Man, Iron Man was my guy, right? I didn't really like anybody else in the film. Like, everybody else was cool. I thought Thor was overpowered, and I liked his character. And Captain America just was like very one-dimensional to me. He didn't really become multi-dimensional for me until what was the espionage one? Winter Soldier. That's when I was like, okay, I'll pay a little bit more attention to Cap. But in this film, he captivated me so much with Cap has got the most heart, I think, out of the core Avengers. Like, he just does not give up, and he's just a man with some with super soldier serum in him, and it gives him a little bit of a boost. But he's the most regular person out of all of those people. Like, and that scene when he was standing on the battlefield and Dawn was coming and Thanos had just leveled the Avengers headquarters, he just dropped all the nuclear warheads on there. They survived that. He got up, he strapped up, he's like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but we gonna make it happen, right? And then Doctor Strange came with the sling rings, opened it up, and everybody came through. Like, I mean, the whole movie theater I was in started like screaming, because that was one of the dopest scenes in cinematic history, in my opinion.
It was that on your left. When they hit that,
it was so dope.
On your left,
yeah,
it was so dope when you saw Black Panther come out and the squad was back.
Yeah,
man,
with Doctor Strange's loops.
It was just crazy. I mean, I have to go see it again. I'm going to go see it in IMAX a second time just to check it out. But it just shows that if you want to create something and you want to create something great, you have to care about it. You have to take your time with it, and you have to have stages and plans of how you're going to lay it out. And for me, like, this jumped over Star Wars because, like, the new Star Wars franchise movies are okay, in my opinion.
Rogue One was
But
dope,
imagine
though,
if we
but yeah.
got 10 Star Wars movies like a saga, right? Like, imagine if I got to see a Luke Skywalker individual film. Like, Marvel took a template and they just made it that much greater. And that's what's amazing to me. That's what was amazing about this film. The fact that Thor was fat. The character development, another thing.
I was about to say,
so much character development in one film was crazy. So, Jay, what's your next question?
No, so I got several questions at the end of Endgame that I think is going to be. I think for a lot of people probably had some of these same questions. First, so we talked about Gamora being the Soul Stone, and that hope maybe that Black Widow is in the Soul Stone. So let's start there, right? So what kept Nebula from telling them what they had to do to get the Soul Stone? Because she knew.
Which Nebula now? See now because we're talking about time jumps. So which one?
They had talked to current Nebula before when they went to
they did.
Why didn't she just tell them what they had to do to get the Soul Stone?
Well, and then like to feed off on another question, why didn't Nebula tell Gamora what was going to happen to her? Because like she talked to 2014 Gamora, and that was the other thing. I think that's another death that we haven't really focused on was 2023 Nebula had to shoot 2014 Nebula down, and in doing so, she hurt herself as well. But Nebula knew a lot about death, but I think I don't know. Maybe to her it was like not wanting to accept the inevitability of it.
Or just knowing
it's like a soul first, a soul.
Well, I think also just knowing that my assumption would be that they can't. If she told them what they had to do to get the Soul Stone, they might not go do it.
Right, and that was a great scene when Doctor Strange looked at Tony. He was like, "Man, if I tell you how this ends, you're not gonna do it. You're not gonna go through with it."
Yeah. Yeah.
He said that to him. He was like, "Listen, if I tell you how this all ends, you're gonna say no."
He also
I'm not gonna tell you.
He also gave him that look later on in that fight, and Tony made that decision after that.
Right.
That look.
He put their finger
up.
Yeah,
he held up the
This
one,
really for me was the Ballad of Tony Stark. I mean, everybody else I felt like was just there. I just feel like this was like how Star Wars is like the story of Anakin Skywalker. I feel like this is like the story of Tony Stark, just to me.
Well, so the other question is, and it's still back to the Soul Stone piece, right? Is what stopped them from going back and just getting another Tony or another Black Widow from the past?
How do you explain all of this? Is another part, and I can answer that one. How do you explain to somebody from the past, right? Because when they did the time jump back to the first Avengers, and they look so fresh and so new, they're like, "Oh, I got these cool superpowers. Oh, I found a group of people that are like me. Oh, I can handle this." How do you explain to somebody the loss that they've experienced from 2012 to 2023, and then say, "Hey, I need you on this battlefield to fight real quick"? I don't think that's realistic. I think that those you could definitely see a difference in the characters from the past and the characters from the future, especially with the psychological things they dealt with. Like Tony is a completely different dude in 2023 100%. Than when he is in 2014. Just like
Gamora. I mean, when Gamora walks up to Peter Quill and doesn't know him, like kicks him in the balls. It's like
she also told Nebula, "This is him." Like, because so obviously Nebula told her something.
Well, she was like, "You're gonna fall in love with somebody, and you're going to go against our father." But she never says that she's gonna die in soul, getting the Soul Stone.
Right? Because I don't think they can handle that. I mean, the future, the 2023 Avengers, future Avengers, have experienced like a lot of devastation. And what was great about this film is that they let time pass so you could see the devastation. And what was great about the film too was the opening scene when Thanos, right, who was supposed to be all world villain, he looks beat down. Like he accomplished what he needed to do, but this journey
but all that radiation,
and he resolved himself to death at that point.
Nobody that he came in with was with him.
Yeah, and it's like he had to give up the one person he loved to get the Soul Stone to accomplish his mission, and he felt like his mission was more important than loving somebody.
That was just dope cinematography. He was like, "Yeah, I want to be a farmer." It reminded me of a little bit of Gladiator. Like he just wanted to, he had this goal he wanted to do. He just wanted to retire on the farm and chill, but just the loss, everything that you had to give up.
That's a good parallel.
Yeah, like what did it cost? Everything.
So how did y'all feel about them answering a lot of questions as to, well, we're in the age of the internet, so they say, hey, Why didn't they just cut his arm off? Why didn't they just do this? How did y'all feel about the showrunners actually making what we wanted to see and the questions that we had come to life on the screen?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't expect them to go as deep as they did with the problems that come with traveling through time. And also the mental instability. Like, this is the one time we actually see superheroes as real people with superpowers. Usually it's like, oh, you're invincible, like this shouldn't bother you. But it's like Thor was suffering from depression and trying to drink it away. Black Widow was trying to hold herself together. And like when Captain America comes in on her in the middle of her crying session, she's like, trying to put it together because she's Black Widow. But it's like, no, like I'm Natasha and I'm broken. Like, I don't have answers, and I've been doing this for 5 years. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
You always know if a woman's going through something if their hair ain't together. And she looked unkept. That whole movie, she was just like, yeah, I don't even care. Like, my highlights are washed out, but it's cool. We gonna keep it moving.
Yeah, or like, when Scott finally comes out of the van after 5 years. Shout out to the rat, by the way. But when Scott finally comes out and he sees his name on a memorial and then sees his daughter all grown up, it was moments like that where it was like, oh, this is real. Like this deeply affected them, and they have not fought crime since. Like
right.
In those 5 years, like
there's nothing to
Captain
do.
America was going to like an Alcoholics Anonymous type session.
He was leading the sessions.
Where they were like trying to cope together.
Yeah, he was leading the session because that's how he needed to try to move on. But like. That I think is just...
And that was the other thing. It was like, for him, the concept of moving on, it was like in part trying to avoid the pain that came from what happened, the pain of failing. And he couldn't do it anymore by the time Black Widow died. So it was just interesting to see how people cope with loss in different ways.
How fantastic was the scene where they finally saved Tony from space, right? And Captain Marvel comes to the rescue, puts the team on her back again. She put the team on her back a few times. A lot of people were hating on her.
Well, I mean, she's OP.
She's OP, so she took the team on her back, and she let them know. She's like, listen, y'all ain't the only planet that's dealing with these things, all right? It's galaxies that I'm going back and forth and helping. But how did you enjoy the scene where she gets Tony back to Earth? Pepper Potts, who's down since day one, she's been down with Tony. That was a beautiful story arc with their relationship. Tony... with the IV in his arm is like, dude, I told you that this was gonna happen, Cap. I told you that they were gonna come. I said we needed to put protection around the whole globe, and you told me
during Age of Ultron, right?
You said it was too much.
All that Tony's whole arc where he went as a character started because of the first Avengers. Him going into space, almost sacrificing himself then. And to get that final to put that bomb to take out the Chitauri, that set him on this whole arc of how he started thinking, his like even deteriorating, I guess, in certain thought. Like that led everything to where he got to that speech. All started because of the first Avengers movie,
right?
And the fact he wasn't sleeping, he knew he was open to this new world that there's life out there and there are threats, and then wanting to put like you said, Chloe, put in a suit around the world, like this protection piece, all started because of that experience.
It did. I think that Disney did a great job. Well, let's give a shout out to the Russo brothers and every director because what they did, I think this is a psychological thing that the media does to us, the consumers of film, media, television. They'll tease you with a little bit, and then they'll keep giving you more and more and more. When the first time when Tony went, like you said, Jay, went into space, dropped the nuclear weapon into the Chitauri spaceship, almost died. That opened our eyes to like, wow, superheroes can go out into space and it looks normal, right? And they struggle doing it at first. It's not just like they can do it. It's like they could do it maybe if they push the limits, but they don't have the tech. And this is why this Endgame film didn't blow us away. It wasn't unrealistic. It wasn't like over the top. It was like, man, this really could happen because they set the tone gradually over 10 years. Just giving you a little bit. We go with him going into space the first time. In the first Iron Man, him testing the limits of his suit icing up and falling down, to him just having a suit that can like recreate itself, the nanotech suit. So they did a good job developing characters. And what I don't see a lot in films that Avengers has done, especially in superhero films, is character development. Like, we know a little bit and we feel a specific way about each and every one of these characters, from Cap's niece, I think, that he kissed her. We feel a certain type of way about her, you know?
Yeah, because of Peggy.
All the way to Thanos, who is the villain, who's the problem with everything, with who's trying to fix everything that's wrong with the Earth, which in current times, like, real people are trying to, like, figure out why is the Earth being used the way and handled the way it is. So they just did a good job just writing this out for 10 years. Like, it set the bar for, like, sci-fi fantasy movies. I don't really think somebody has to come really hard to jump over it.
Yeah, and I think it puts Marvel in a good place where, you know, they know that, you know, to what I was saying earlier, like, usually it's like same superhero, different actor, right? But now we're starting to see it's like, no, like, we know these actors of being these superheroes. Like, when Hugh Jackman said that he wasn't going to be Wolverine anymore after playing him for 17 years, it was like, what? Like, what do you mean?
What if they brought out?
It's like, who wasn't gonna do it?
What if they brought out?
But, you know, it's like it's the inevitability of that, and it's like, you know, sometimes you got to move on. And in the Captain America sequence, it's like, now we get a new Captain America. We get a Blackton America.
Facts.
You know, we get Sam, you know, not being Falcon anymore and taking on that mantle. Like, we might get Pepper Potts being the new Iron Man.
I'm down with it. He has a daughter now too. I'm down with it. They set everything up.
Yeah,
like, it was
and
genius.
it's like, you know, it could set up so many things. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see anything like Infinity War again, but maybe it sets up Avengers versus X-Men. Maybe they all come together and fight Galactus.
I would love that.
They can go so many ways.
Here's
now.
my question. Here's my question. What would y'all have done if Doctor Strange popped up on the battlefield? I call it the last battlefield, or like the final battle, and the X-Men came out the sling rings, and because Marvel owns that content now.
Yeah.
What would y'all have done?
Cried a lot, screamed. I would have done a lot of things, and I mean, like, I don't know. It's like there's just so much they can do now. Like, Storm can marry Black Panther. Like, we could get that power couple. You know, like, there's a lot that could happen now. And it confirms a lot of upcoming movies. Like, maybe we'll get Gambit, you know, like, now that they have X-Men. But yeah, I definitely would have, I would have been all over the place emotionally if I saw Storm and everybody coming out the rings.
Jay, do you think, being that Tony Stark is a favorite character of both of us, I didn't know that. I didn't know you love Tony Stark like I love Tony Stark. Mm-hmm. My question is, were you sad when you saw him pass away?
Yeah, no, that's the emotional part of the movie for me. The most emotional part. Like, I felt sad about the Black Widow sacrifice. Like, I felt a way about that, but I legitimately got choked up on the Tony Stark part, just because, like, so the layers of that, the parallels between what happened with him and Spider-Man in Infinity War, and then that kind of being in reverse here in Endgame. The part with Pepper Potts comes in and basically saying, it's okay, like, we're good. You can go, you can rest now, finally. And that being, again, another layered line from post the first Avengers movie, where he wasn't able to sleep after that, and his sleeping was affected greatly all the way through Iron Man 3, and how he approached things. Like, she's like, you know, you can finally rest now, like that finale. Then when the light went off in the chest piece, that was it for me.
So what was interesting too, and talking about Tony and Pepper's relationship, is that I love the fact that throughout all of this, she was just a strong and stoic woman. Like, throughout, she freaked out a lot, like, which is normal. But we got to think about the near-death experiences she's been in, like, since 2008 to now. Like, literally, this man who loves her has been putting her in situations because he's trying to do something greater, and she's still there. What was crazy about it too is that the line when he's like, yeah, I buy your mother stuff, she never wears it. He says it to his daughter, who he has. And the fact that Tony is like a straight womanizer throughout all of these films. And it always happens to dudes like that. If they womanize people, they end up having a daughter. And it's like, oh my God. Like, this is real. Like, I am in charge of one of these people, like these humans, a woman, a female. And the strongest people in Tony's family were women. You know what I mean? Like he had a relationship with his dad, but it was very like distant. And what was great about that flashback when he got to talk to his dad, who was around the same age as him, who was in the same boat as him, I was thinking, like, does this affect the timeline somehow? Like, does Howard Stark now create this short film that we saw in Iron Man 2 where he's looking at Tony? He makes a video for Tony. He's like, listen, I always cared about you. I always loved you. You know, no matter what, you know, you're important to me. Like that, like the layers to this film was so deep that I was like, man, did that conversation that he had, like, even open it up so Tony could find a new element? Like all of these different things. It was just like this whole film was mind blowing. I can't wait to see.
And then also, I don't know if y'all noticed, but during Tony Stark's funeral, every Marvel superhero stood in the order in which their films came out.
I didn't even notice that. That's
Yeah,
too.
That's why Captain Marvel was in the back, and then Nick Fury, you know, is like the glue that holds it all together.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. I was like, it was just so tastefully done.
I didn't recognize that other random person there, and then realize it was the little kid from Iron Man 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is dope too. And I wonder how he's gonna. If you show him in there, like, it's cool, but like you gotta give him a fight scene, or he has to be helping out the Avengers in some form or fashion. Let's not forget, he's really smart for a kid. Like, he helped Tony Stark in a bad time, like find himself also, but he helped him out with tech. He had his own little setup in his house. So much source material that they have. Are y'all getting Disney Plus?
This is so many layers. Like, we keep saying that. I think that's the running theme. Like, everything's just layered, man. Like, they think everything through. Like, the fact that even in Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, like, the little kid at the Stark Expo was actually Spider-Man. Like,
right.
Like, they think about all this stuff so, like, deeply, and they just drop these little gems throughout every one of these movies, and it can seem like such a little thing, and then realize that it has major implications.
Right, and then we also get Stan Lee cameos. Like, no matter if it's in Marvel Studios or Marvel Entertainment, he made sure to make a cameo in every single Marvel film that he had.
Right up until the end.
Right up until the end. I wasn't expecting to be in there, but apparently he's the guy driving the car in 1970 when Captain America and Iron Man first get there.
He drove past and then yelled out,
"Make love, not war."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like he did it until the very end. I hope, like, you know, someone from his family can continue to carry on that legacy, because, I mean, it's just outstanding how they were able to do this, not just in one film, but like over an 11-year span. I mean, it's just like the thought process, the timing, the continuity. It takes a lot of hands to pull this off.
And what's fantastic about it is that it's direct source material. They're just updating source material that's already been created and tweaking it. And that's what's beautiful about it. I want to get into Thor. I thought Thor also had some fantastic character development. How did you guys react when y'all saw him fat? And like not chiseled,
just laughed.
Not hyper masculine. Like, how did y'all feel about that?
I just laughed. That's all I can do.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like much of the audience laughed. Yeah.
I love that because, like, Thor is a comedian, right? And he just like he turned into like kind of a dude, bro. Like kind of a hippie in this last film. Like, and he's always been free spirited and doing what he wants to do. But what was great about it was like the effects of what happened and his failure showed on his physical, right? And we saw it in his mental. And he was just like in a dark place. He was in a dark apartment. And I've been there sometimes. I think everybody's been in a place where they've been depressed. They're not, the sun is, the blinds are not open. You don't want to go outside. It's kind of messy in your place. What was great about it was that I was like, so he's depressed. This final battle for against Thanos, he's about to get in shape again for this battle, right? Like, we're gonna see a workout scene. I'm so glad they didn't do that. They did that in Man of Steel. Not Man of Steel. I'm sorry. What was the film where Batman got swole to go beat Superman up?
Batman vs.
Superman. I'm sorry. That's how bad it was. I forget. I don't even remember the name. But
I didn't even
that
watch
scene
it.
where like Ben Affleck goes and gets swole, and then he's able to do the final battle. I love the fact, and I know they probably was like, should we really do that? No, let's keep him fat, because the metaphysical was inside. Like the change that needed to occur was when he went and talked to his mother, and she cracked the jokes. It was so funny. She's like, dude, you need to eat a salad. Like, you lost, what's up with your your hair, your clothes, you were tripping. But the conversation that she had with him was like, you need to get up there together. She's like, it's okay to fail. And what was great was his father placed so much on him, but his father even came back and talked to him in his death and was like, dude, it's not that serious. Just try to make the right decisions, right? So when we fast forward to see Thor, and you're like, Thor is fat? Like, what happened to you? I love the fact that when he got on the battlefield, he still had his husky body, but his mind was different. So when he went in there, he gave it his all with what he had. And I love the fact that he didn't do a transformation, because it shows that you don't really need, physical transformations are cool, but it starts in your brain first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure we're gonna see.
And I think mental health and self-care is important. And I think, and another thing with Guardians 3 that I found that was really cool was that, Thor made Valkyrie the queen of Asgard. And he was like, I need to start being the man that I need to be. And I need to go find myself. Now, of course, it's gonna be, like a bunch of cracking jokes and whatnot in Guardians 3, but it's like, no, like Thor is gonna go find who he really is. And, really figure out what his purpose is. And I think now he can move forward in peace. He doesn't have to feel the pressure of being the king of Asgard. And who better to give it to than Valkyrie, who had to go through her own transformation in Ragnarok. Like she was in the same boat. She was drinking herself away. She was stuck on a planet. She had no way of getting home. And with Thor in the Hulk helping her get off the planet, she was able to find a new purpose and really figure out the woman that she needs to be. So I just thought that doing that, I thought that was really nice of Marvel to put a little bow on that.
And let's not forget how OP she is too. Like, she's an OP character too. Her and Thor got similar strength. Yes. And I saw a lot of people hating on the women scene. They're like, they're pushing women power down my throat. Listen, there's been, man,
that was one of the best scenes too. It was like, oh God. And I tell people this all the time, like, with DC having Wonder Woman being like the first female superhero to have her own standalone film, like that was a big moment. But for me, it felt a lot of like, I may be a woman, but I'm a superhero. But when you have heroes like Captain Marvel or Okoye or Valkyrie, it feels like, okay, I'm a woman and a superhero. Like, are there any questions? No, cool. Like, let's go beat somebody's behind. Like, they never saw like being a woman as like a hindrance to what they could do. It was just like, we're just gonna go out and do it no matter who we are.
Well, first of all, like, if we go back and think about that final battle, right? They don't win if Captain Marvel doesn't come and blow that ship up. Like, the bombardments are coming down, right? And like, I see Spider-Man trying to run and get the gauntlet into the time machine, into the quantum realm. I see T'Challa put the gases on. What? First of all, what's a Wakandan 40 time? Like, what is that? What do y'all think they run in the 40?
Wait, say it again.
What do y'all think Wakanda's running the 40-yard dash?
Why would Wakanda do that?
Did you see him taking off on the battlefield? Like, did you see him turn the burners on?
Yeah.
I'm trying to ask y'all, like, he dipped. He took the gauntlet and he dipped. And what was great about it too was like, when all the women got together, they cleared a path. It was almost like a football play, like you do it in your backyard. Clear a path, get it to this spot, and they cleared a path. And Captain Marvel, I think, made it happen.
Yeah.
So it was just so well done. Valkyrie on the Pegasus.
That was awesome.
My God!
Yeah,
like the shots, like
that was awesome.
And it was 40-minute fight scene. So I never seen anything like that in my life. I literally felt like a video game.
You forgot how impactful and how many women have been featured, or at least have been supported in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then that scene, I think, really emphasized Pepper Potts having her Iron Man suit and finally wearing her Iron Man suit that she was given and going out and fighting. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it was great to see. So to me now, Endgame hysteria will be continue on for a while, but what is next? And that's what is interesting. So what is next for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? And that's TV, movies, everything. Because what we know that there's Black Panther 2. We know that Spider-Man Far From Home comes out in a couple months. We know that there's a Black Widow movie coming out that's supposedly...
See, and that's the thing. I'm like, that's why she's in the Soul Stone. Like,
they said it's going to be a prequel. Yeah, so they said it's going to be a prequel.
Ooh, I don't know how to feel.
There's another Doctor Strange movie. There's another Guardians of the Galaxy. There's the Shang-Chi movie. So I
heard about that. I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, that's
shout out to China. You know they're doing it for China.
Yep, they're bringing more of the galactic stuff. So they're doing a movie about the Eternals.
That means Galactus is coming in.
But then, now that they have Marvel Entertainment or most of it, you know, like I wonder what's gonna happen to X-Men after Dark Phoenix comes out this year. And then, you know, Wolverine dies in the year 2029, so you might get New Mutants eventually.
So this is all the things that have been confirmed definitively at this point, set in stone, right?
When do you think the crossover is going to happen? Is it going to happen on Disney Plus? Are you buying Disney Plus?
So right now, do you feel Disney about Plus has 1, 2, 3, 4 shows confirmed. 4 with characters that we know.
Loki.
Aren't Vision and Loki involved?
So there's going to be a show dedicated to new Captain America, Blackton America. Would you say?
Yes.
So Falcon,
Blackton America.
So Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's a show. So it's going to be Sam and Bucky. About a show focused on them. There's going to be a show focused on Wanda and the Vision. Apparently. There's going to be a show focused on Loki, and then there's going to be a show focused on Hawkeye. So those are the 4 shows confirmed at this point for Disney Plus.
Also, shout out to Wanda / Scarlet Witch, because Thanos was like, I don't even know who you are.
You about to.
I mean, she went through right, exactly. You about to find out, because she went through a lot, having to see Vision die twice.
She balled him up. She balled him up straight up. Listen, so this goes into a next question. My next question: best fight scene in all of Endgame.
I mean, that last one damn near an hour, so.
but here's the thing. Like, there were so many individual fights, so like, kind of like Infinity War. So, what was your favorite?
My favorite was when Captain America picks up Thor's hammer.
Yeah, they've been
because I didn't think anyone else could do it. So when they were going back and forth with the hammer and Stormbreaker. That, and then also when Captain Marvel was going toe to toe with Thanos, because I really thought she would be the one to kill him.
Yeah. Well, she kept
a lot of people
because she's so powerful.
A lot of people were saying that she didn't deserve that kill because she was a new character and he had taken away so much from everybody else.
And she's strong enough to do it. If they could have, they definitely could have done it to her. I mean, they flat out said she's the strongest character they have.
She is.
So
she's the most
could have
OP.
done it, but to Chloe's point, that first point where the hammer started moving, and then you saw that they hit Thanos, that came back, and it was Captain America holding it, and you like, oh, my whole theater erupted because everybody's like, about time, right?
Right. And once again, we go back to layering, right? Like in Age of Ultron, they're drinking, they're having fun. You know, it's after work. They're like, all right, let's have a game. And Thor's like, I'm the worthiest one. Like, nobody's more worthy than me. And Cap is like, you know what? Let me try. Everybody tries it, and it nudges just a little bit, just the tiniest bit, and everybody kind of is like, what? Like, did this regular dude just do that? To have it finish with him using these legendary weapons to hold the fort down until the squad came, it was perfect.
Yeah, 100.
It was perfect. How did y'all feel about just shot selection of showing? First of all, what's up with that vibranium that he's got? Like, was that like the beta version of the vibranium?
I thought the same thing too when Captain America's shield broke, and I know it was supposed to parallel a previous. The comics and the previous film, but I was like, okay, we said vibranium's the strongest metal in the universe. What is stronger than vibranium?
The one thing is so Thanos.
What was that sword made out of?
Thanos didn't have his weapon in the last Infinity War.
I mean, he didn't. Yeah,
He didn't have his weapon in Infinity War. He was just fighting bare hands. So,
Because he had the gauntlet, which was his OP.
and that's the thing. It's like they're fighting a younger Thanos too. Like this is a Thanos 4 years before Infinity
with
War.
his weapon ready to go. Like he is different, but it was supposed to just to parallel the comic. The fact that he broke Captain America's shield in the comic too.
Right. And I think they did a good job. It's the Gamora, Nebula, and Thanos looked battle ready when we saw them. Like in Infinity War, they looked like, oh, I'm getting kind of tired. Like this is going very long. In the Thanos that we got, where they time jumped and came to the present, they looked they had just finished like terraforming planets. Like they just finished like that scene where they all meet back up in the ship and they're looking down and that planet is smoldering. Like you have to assume that these battles that they're going into are like epic battles. Like the world, it doesn't have the technology that they're bringing to the table. Like it's completely different. They're universes that are far way more advanced than
Probably on his way to Nova.
Earth, right? And he could have been. And the Nova Corps has a squad. Like Nova Corps, as we saw in Captain Marvel, they have legit fighters. On Earth, we don't have that. We just have the Avengers.
There's a running theory that because he didn't destroy all of the Nova Corps, so there's a running theory that post Thanos destroying them, that we're gonna actually see Nova, the actual hero Nova, and that's gonna like be a catalyst for him having that character having a movie and the Nova Corps becoming stronger and being more like the Green Lantern Corps, which is what their intent was in the comics.
Okay, so a lot of people had questions about Adam Warlock not appearing. How did you guys feel about that?
About what?
Adam Warlock not appearing.
Because that's Guardians of the Galaxy.
You think that's what he's going to be showcased?
That was the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. was them making that gold woman, I forget the name because it's been a while since I
it's like Sasha or something like that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But it's been a while, but she made a very specific thing comment, and they showed like the chamber where he was. Like Adam Warlock will be Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Okay. You think Thor's going to lose weight to go fight him?
It's interesting to see what that dynamic is.
Do you like Fat Thor or no?
Well, it depends on how quickly that they're going to jump into what that story is. You know what I mean? Like, is that going to pick up right at the end of everything that's happened with Endgame? Does it take some time away?
Right, is it like a few months later?
So it's going to be interesting to see when that time frame is. So, but I mean, if Thor's just running with the Guardians of the Galaxy now, like that's kind of fire.
How did you feel about this like sexy Hulk like that popped up? Like they did it. I'm not gonna lie. Look, I'm very comfortable with myself. He was a good looking Hulk. They combined the best parts of each person. Bruce Banner and the Hulk combined to create like a perfect creature.
It was mad. It was funny though. It was weird, but I loved when they went back to 2012 and they're like, act like the Hulk and smash things, and he's like, oh, fine.
In a car.
How great was it when the kids asked for a selfie? Did you guys like that part?
I like that part too. Yeah,
that was good. My thing is, I think it's another nod to the comics, but I think it also brings up a good point to circle it all the way back to the beginning of our discussion, where I don't think when we talk about, so Thanos made that one statement right before the big fight about how they didn't want to they couldn't let enough alone and couldn't give up, and they continued to fight and they went for another way, right, to try to disrupt his plan. Even going
What's
back
the line?
in time
The line
to do
specifically.
It right.
The line specifically Thanos says is, you couldn't deal with your failures, and it brought you right back to me.
I don't think the Hulk's given up on anything. And the fact that he's been studying that time travel stuff, that he was the person he went to first before Tony jumped on and really put it all together, but he understands how to use it. He's the one operating the machine, the whole 9 yards. Like, I don't think he's given up. He said it himself. He tried to bring her back. When he did his snap, he tried to bring her back and couldn't. Yeah. I don't think he's giving anything up. So I think that's going to be one of those subtle little things that they just drop in there and just let it fly, and it's going to pop back up at some point that he's tried to go back and get her.
He handled.
Yeah, and I mean, like Banner loved.
Yeah, he handled that very
Natasha.
well. Her death, he handled very well. I thought he was gonna lose it. I even thought they were gonna make him revert back to like regular Hulk or something like that.
I thought so too. Cause like the dynamic they had in Infinity War. I mean, I thought the same thing. I thought he was just gonna lose it.
He didn't get a huge showcase in that last fight.
He really didn't. And that's why you have to.
And then, like, what I also found interesting was like he was the one pressing all the buttons. I'm like, those big hands can mess something up.
But that was what was beautiful about it, though. Like, he found balance. He literally found balance. He was giving people little tacos. Like, they did a good job showing that he was in complete control of his anger. Another scene, somebody grabbed him. I forgot who grabbed him. They were talking, and he said, I think it was Thor, and he said, please remove your hands from me. Like, in the most common way. Like, normally their interactions are like, he's punching Thor in the face, they don't like each other. But he's like, Thor, you need to get it together. He's like, and he says, like, the most calm. He's like, please remove your hands. Like, this is what's happening.
You're listening.
Like, that tripped me out.
Loki, if it was Loki in 2012,
right.
he would have been on the floor.
You're not grabbing the Hulk like that.
No.
So, do you guys think he's gonna get a little bit more play in future movies?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing with the Avengers. It's like, one is dead, one has aged, one is missing. It's like, do the others just retire? I could see a scenario where, because what I loved with the Hulk, when we first see him combine Banner and the Hulk, he's like, I stopped looking at my power as a disease and more as a cure. And it reminded me so much of what Professor X tries to do with the X-Men. It's like, you have abilities that should be used for the greater good. Like, don't think of it as a disease. And now that X-Men is under Disney, do we see a scenario where the Hulk is helping out at Charles Xavier's school?
Okay.
Teaching the
that
new
would be
mutants.
crazy.
Like,
Hulk
is
versus
that
Deadpool.
something that we get to
Hulk
see?
versus Deadpool.
Yeah, he would just be calm. There would be a lot of witty banter
This is my other piece, and I think you just reminded me. Like, we talk about questions again. Like, I asked these other questions earlier. Like, all right, so we saw that 2012 Loki disappear with the Tesseract.
Mm-hmm.
Where
the hell is
he? What is that going to shake out? Does that shake out in any way? Where did Gamora go? The 2014 Gamora that was in the present. Where did she go?
Right. Like her and Quill didn't link up.
Well, Quill, when Thor gets in the ship, it's like before they look at the map, it says like Gamora is searching, and then the search was never completed.
So so like there's still those questions, like these little underlying things of just little things that it's all right. Do we get answers immediately? Like, does this play out over the course of the entire phase? Like, what happens?
What were some of the most shocking points to you in this film? Where your jaw dropped open?
I think just going into it, I didn't know they were going to kill Thanos in the first 30 minutes.
I loved it.
Me neither.
I loved it. I
did too. I did too. I was just like, wait, what is this for the rest of the movie now?
I was shocked because I was still looking for answers, but then I just kept like Nebula's words kept echoing in my head, like my father is many things, but a liar is not one of them. And I was like, oh well, damn. Like I guess he said what he was going to do. Like, he destroyed the stones and that's it. And Thor was like, okay then. Like,
which was great because he said to him in Infinity War, you should have gone for the head.
Yep.
And
he should have.
And that's weighed on him the entire time.
Right. And once again, we talked about earlier how he feels like he did not accomplish what he was supposed to do. He gave it all, but he didn't accomplish it. So he just took the head off. They walked in there like, we're not asking no questions. This ain't going to be no discussion. We're not talking about what you're trying to do because we've seen it and we've been dealing with the effects from it. We found you and you're gone. And I loved it. I love the fact that Captain Marvel put him in a straight headlock.
Like, Captain Marvel was a catalyst for that.
She regulated. She straight up busted in there and was like, what's up? Answer the question before we kill you.
Yeah, like, where's Fury?
I loved it. It was so good. The fact that they cut off his arm and they showed that tidbit. Like, they were like, in no form or fashion are we going to deal with this again. Like, in no form or fashion. I wonder how that version of the Avengers, like, post-losing, would have stood up against the future Avengers, like the 2023 Avengers. Like, did they hurt enough? Did they feel hurt enough to complete the mission, right? That's what I want to know. Like those two versions. Like if we took we already answered that question, they would have lost because the character development wasn't the same. Mm-hmm. So that was dope. I mean, it was cool. One of the craziest parts for me that happened in the film, that might be it. Him getting beheaded and them cutting off his arm. Like that was crazy for a PG-13 movie. I was very surprised at that. I was like, well, damn, they're bringing it right now.
Yeah, so fast, so quick right out the gate too. Like the movie went on that long.
I don't like the fact that Vision didn't get a lot of closure. Like, is he just gone?
So I mean, they got a TV
Well, that's
show.
the thing. I think it feeds into the Disney Plus show. Same with Loki. So yeah, it's like I guess we get to see Vision again now that he's like not really dead anymore. But
that reminded me.
His whole thing is he exists only because of the stone, though. So like.
Yeah, they're gone.
Where's
now,
his consciousness go? You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of those other pieces. Like there's gonna be some explanation that has to happen to why that he exists in that show.
One shocking moment for me, aside from Thanos getting his head cut off, is Thanos leveling the Avengers headquarters.
That threw me off.
That took me. I was like, I literally was like, so we get to this point and they figure it out, and it's the sacrifice. Ronan gets to see his family for a quick second, and you take it away from him, and now he's dead. Like y'all just gonna level the place. It just showed how like hell bent Thanos was on completing this mission. I think he's got to be up there and with one of the greatest villains in film history. Like
and then he even tweaked his mission because he's like, well, now I'm going to create a world where nobody remembers what happened before the snap. A world where everyone is truly grateful for what I did.
Which was even more sinister.
It's like he was so hell-bent on a very grotesque version of gratitude that, he was willing to give up his own daughter again, It was a lot. And he's like, well, since y'all already did the dirty work for me, then all I gotta do is snap my fingers, you know?
So we can wrap. This has turned into a straight Marvel podcast, and I don't really even feel bad about it because it was so good. We tried to do 10 years into an hour. But what are you guys' predictions moving forward with the Avengers?
Ooh, I had a list. Definitely think Gamora and Black Widow are in the Soul Stone. I think we do get Avengers versus X-Men. I do want that to happen. Either Pepper Potts or Rhodey dons the Iron Man mantle, just as Captain America is not going to be Falcon. And then I don't know what happens with X-Men like itself, because what they've been doing it's like they've been going back every decade and picking up a new X-Men character to reintroduce since Days of Future Past restarted their timeline. And it's like right now they're on Dark Phoenix, starring Sansa Stark, Sophie Turner herself. And it takes place the same year, ironically enough, that Tony Stark's parents die in their car crash, thanks to Bucky. But yeah, it takes place in 1992 with Dark Phoenix. So I don't know if like they continue to catch us up for another like 20 some odd years, and then we get into the present day, or what. But I think we get a whole lot more X-Men. I think we do see Avengers X-Men cross over. Either they're on the same side or they're against each other. And I was talking with a couple friends, and I think I mentioned it earlier, like maybe they'll all team up to fight Galactus. Like that'll be something cool to see too. But I think the future is bright for Marvel. I don't know if they're gonna cool off and let us breathe anytime soon, but I think the future is bright. There's definitely more content, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be delving into more the Eternals and like the gods of gods in the Marvel universe. So Galactus makes a lot of sense. I think that's where you start implementing everybody else into it. I also think that they did Civil War as a event and as a movie, and I think this opens up for Secret Wars,
which is the Illuminati situation. But it's definitely not going to be like sinister like that, right?
I just don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but I think it's when you're bringing in like the what do they call him? What was Peter Quill's dad? in
Celestials.
Celestials. When you're bringing the Celestials into it, like that opens up so many different things in the Marvel universe because they essentially have been like the puppet masters of the universe, right? So once you start bringing Guardians of the Galaxy, open that door, and I think that's going to be, you know, the bigger piece. And when you talk about that, like, you know, they didn't do this as the biggest motivation in Thanos' story, but Thanos, in the comics, his motivation was to appease death herself, right? So how does that, do they bring that in, that Thanos is dead now? Do they bring that up as a thing? Like, oh yeah, no, that was his emissary, right? Like, so now does that come up? I think it's going to be more about the Celestial piece. That's going to make a lot more. I think we're not done seeing the Kree. I think we're going to see more about Inhumans. I think all that stuff's going to start popping back up.
As Bar Scott said, I can't wait. So, my prediction is, I think Tony will be kind of like a Jiminy Cricket character moving here on out. Like, he'll be around. I think it was a nice tie-in that he recorded a tape in Event of Death for everybody to kind of find peace. But his technology is everywhere in everybody's suit, right? His AI didn't go anywhere. That still exists. And I'm sure like his essence is like still going to be around in the Marvel universe because he was just such a huge character. And that's my prediction. I agree with Chloe with the Galactus coming up, and that means I agree with Jay with the Celestials being a big part of it. So I just can't wait. I might cancel my Netflix and get Disney Plus. You know, we'll see. So we are gonna do a Game of Thrones pod, but this was Avengers Day today, and
yeah, because speaking of death, what do we say to the God of death?
Today. So shout out. Listen, subscribe, like. We're gonna keep giving you more content. Stay tuned for the Game of Thrones pod, and we'll get back to sports in a few. Peace.
Peace.
Deuces.
You're listening to The Pine.